And after that, he just said, I was okay. So, which was interesting. Which was very interesting. Because actually, the next day, I was okay. This work is inspired by personal experience. I had just, years ago, I just finished with high school, and I felt sick. I really had no idea what I had, but I just wasn't feeling well. Like I was really withdrawn. I hated everything. I hated myself, and I wanted to run away from myself, but I couldn't. And I was not really engaged with society anymore. I was like just sick, and in my head, I had like violent and extreme headaches. Like someone was just playing with drums, you know, in my brain with like knives, and I had no idea what it was. So went to the hospital, no diagnosis possible. Like the hospital didn't know what it was. So psychotherapy didn't do anything, and I was just feeling bad and bad and bad and worse every day. And my family just realized that it was something beyond hospitals and psychotherapy. So then they took me to a traditional healer. We call them in Cameroon Pygmies. They are the original people who were there in Cameroon, and they refuse up to now to open themselves to civilization and modernism. So they live in a forest and just, you know, do the fishing, the hunting, and the farming for a living. And we have, so almost everyone in Cameroon, when they have a heart in the city, they run to them for traditional healings. So they took me to him, and right away he knew I was wrong. He diagnosed me with some kind of ancestor unhappiness or something like that, where he said that there's something wrong between me and my father, which was true, because at the time my father and I were really like big time enemies. Like, and this in my culture and my tribe is unacceptable, because some Africans who are in the room will understand what I mean by the respect of the elder and the respect of the family. So, and I had done something to my father, and I was just, I don't care kind of thing. So, and there was that thing that was broken there, and I was just, I don't care. So what he did was he cut banana tree leaves, big ones, put on the floor. And by the way, for Africans who are here and non-African, banana tree leaves is where you sacrifice animals. So symbolically, I was being sacrificed to help me through whatever I was going through. So he led me on the banana leaves, you know, I was undressed and naked and all that, and the family around, you know, the healing session. And he lit a candle, put on the right side of my head, another candle on the left side, another one on the left side of my left foot, another one on the left side, right side of my right foot. And then he anointed me with some kind of lotions, I don't know where he got them. And then he started chewing on some specific things, and then he started running around me and singing Atabe, Dumbe, Dumbe, Atabe, and then he sings, which roughly translates like something like, oh, venerated one, forgive him, or something like that. So, and he led me there for a whole day, like I was just lying there, whole day. And he had that big pot that was boiling, you know, with boiling something in the pot for hours and hours and hours. Towards the end of the day, now he brought the whole family there, and then he asked me to stand up, he helped me up, put me in the bathroom with the door open, and he had the big pot in front of him, and then had a calabash, and the water was still boiling in there, and he just, you know, got the water and splashed it on me, BAM! So, and I just saw something like water coming out of my face and through the window in the bathroom. So, and he just kept like splashing all of that on me. So, and after that, he just said, I was okay. So, which was interesting. Which was very interesting. Because actually, the next day, I was okay. And then family was like happy, and we were all happy, and we hugged, and we ate, and then my skin started like, you know, peeling off, you know, the old skin, and then the new skin started coming out of that, and all that. So it was really wonderful. So, and me, you know, having the Western education, especially in psychology, there was just no way I could understand that from a Western lens, a Western perspective. Because how could I explain what just happened to me. How could a psychotherapist trained in the West say, well, what happened to you was just, Dr. Lindy said, delirium when I said dementia. Sorry. It's okay, I loved it. Well, I'm dealing with like professionals in my field, so I have to be careful. So, and then I got interested in like, okay, how is my experience relevant in academia? Why am I even telling that, that story? I'm telling it because there are a few reasons. My whole education has been, this is how you do things, this is why we expect you to do things, coming from the Western education. So, and I try to understand it from my training, because when I try to tell my friend from the Western education that this, I cannot articulate this in this language, I comprehend it culturally, but I do not understand it rationally. They just couldn't understand that. So I try to make it understandable from the Western rationale, which is really tricky. So, and the other point to that is that now we live in a multicultural world. There's just no way I can be isolated as an African and say I don't care about other cultures. So, and because of that, how do I articulate my uniqueness in the midst of this multicultural world that I live in? So to define and situate the problem, based on my experience, I started asking myself, is mental health a universal phenomenon? Why? Because I appreciate the effort of the ICD, International Classification of Diseases, trying to have, to describe and classify all the diseases in the world so that it would be universally recognized. I appreciate that. But how realistic is that? Because something like what happened to me, how will they put that in the ICD-9 code? I don't know. So that was, that really, confused me a little bit. So, and then when I say that, then there's a suggestion that, well, we in the West, we already worked so hard and developed those models. They're strong enough. What you can do, because they're universal, you can just take them, bring it to your culture, and tweak them here and there, so that you can adapt to your culture. And I was like, oh, okay. So, you're telling me that you studied schizophrenia in San Francisco and developed a model, and then you said that I can just take that model and go there and just adapt it a little bit and it will just fit. So, I just don't understand how I can do that. So it's just not really possible because it comes from two different worldviews. So, and even if I try to adapt that, how can even that adaptation work? Like, what would be the parameters? And we see as I go through Dr. Zoe's case that she faced that as she adapted CBT. And I was like, yes, that's my point. So, yeah, we live in this multicultural world. And all the research that I read, all the studies that I went through, basically came to that conclusion that multiculturalism has failed. And why? Why is multiculturalism failed? Because it focuses on representation. It's simply about a polite, and superficial interaction, and say, for example, here at CIS, we have so many middle-class white people, so we're not really progressive. We need to change that. So let us really recruit a couple of blacks and Latino and Asian as a minority so we can appear progressive. So how well do you really want to know about me? All these years that I've been in my program, I've never been exposed to any literature on African healing practices or African philosophy, any. But I'm in the integral school. Multiculturalism just failed, so yeah. So now we move to, and they say, okay, since multiculturalism is not working, now let's try something else, cross-culturalism. Dr. Linus talked about that a lot, this book. So, big thinkers, psychiatrists, cross-cultural psychiatrists, psychologists say, oh, well, since we have this thing, let's build bridges. Let's cross, go across the bridge to see how other people do things. Absolutely, I respect that. they have all the best intentions, right? They want to learn from other culture and all that, but the reality is that they are going into other culture with their worldviews. So it just makes sense that they will not be neutral when dealing with other cultures' way of doing, when they're influenced or guided by all worldviews. So, and the intention, even if it's a good intention, once it's taken into another person's worldview, has the risk to fall into judgment of value. Why are these people even doing this thing like that? I'm not sure. And the case that Dr. Lina described that I'm talking about in my exactly is that. He's like this Westerner person in Zimbabwe and just does not understand why the woman is being shaved and saying how her ancestor is possessing her and be all crazy. So he's looking for biological signs, and that's how he's been trained. So the intention can fall into judgment value, and then cross-culturalism failed. Now there's a new model, interculturalism. They say, now we want to be mutual respect. You bring something on the table, I bring something on the table, I will respect what you bring, you respect what I bring. Dr. Ferrer here, Jorge, can even tell a little bit more about that. That is this line of work on participatory term. Like everything you bring on the table has to be valued, you know, as equally as any other person's. So this is a good intention. But what I've noticed underneath this is that it's like a religious dream. It's like a Christian kind of life, la la land, like la, we just go along and be happy. They have our subjectivities. So I'm not sure about interculturalism. So now we have cross-culturalism. Sorry,
by the way, I don't feel identified.
So they now say, well, multiculturalism failed, cross-culturalism failed, interculturalism, now we try transculturalism. And this was actually coined by a guy named Fernando Ortiz, Latin American, and he was in 1940, and he was inspired by another popular author, Jose Marti, who had a very, very popular article, who published a popular article in 1891, where he made the argument. He said that intercultural mixed people is the key in legitimizing the American identity. So what he's actually describing here is that there's no one, one's identity is not singular but multiple. So it's a little bit like what they say in Latino, Spanish-speaking people here will correct me. Tu eres mi otro yo. So you are my other me. So transculturalism is trying to say, well, I want to look at you and see me in you. And then if I'm able to see you in you, me in you, then we are bringing culturalism on a different level. Because it will not be defined by politicians and everything else. Because I'm able to see myself in the other person. So that is good. It's a transpersonal, transcultural thing. It will lead us to become global citizens. And the problem with that is, what will global citizenship look like?